I'm talking of categorizing them into like a retail salesman, an insurance salesman, new construction, multifamily, right? Because all of the needs are different. If you're trying to get to a goal that's so ambitious from where you are today, if you can't hire the position, if you can't afford to hire it, that's when you would maybe consider taking a partner on, right?
Okay, what are we trying to accomplish first, right? You want to get to 15 million with better margins, okay? So we know that's the goal. We have the same exact challenges. It's a 12-12 pitch, it's the end of October, and you typically would pay 105 a square for that. And they're like, we want 155.
You're here and you want to get here, and what's the time frame you're looking at to do that? Okay, so what if you could do it in 1 year? Wouldn't that be great, right? Collapse the amount of time that it takes, because really I'm going to guess the reason that you want to get to 15 million isn't just because you want to be at 15 million. You have other reasons for wanting to be at 15 million, right? Like, it's probably got something to do with income, the lifestyle you can provide, right? The sorts of things, like what you want to accomplish in your life. And we all only have a certain amount of years. So like, really, when we look at whatever our goal is, like if you can say, hey, how can I get there quicker? That's going to really be the best thing, because I use this analogy all the time, but last year I went and climbed that Mount Elbert. It's in Colorado, right? 14,000 foot mountain. And I'd never really climbed anything that size at all, right? But as I'm going up the mountain, I'm like, oh shit, we're almost to the top, right? And you get up there and it's what they call a false summit. You're like, oh, son of a bitch, okay, I guess we're not there. I guess we got to keep going. And then you think you're about there again, and it's a second false summit, and you're like, fuck, like this is harder than I thought. So I think when you look at your career, it's a lot the same, right? We can only see as far as we can see, but as you start to, gain traction and get progress, you get to see further. And right now you're seeing like, hey, I think I can hit 15 million. When you get there, you're gonna go, I think I can do, a little bit more than that, whatever that is, right? But your vision becomes more after you start reaching certain goals. So I guess to tell you guys a little bit about me, I basically am no genius, didn't have any like real education that made me special or anything like that, right? I was a high school dropout. I started roofing because that's what I was already in, right? Like I was already working for a general contractor. And as I kind of went through the years, I got into a partnership early on. And then, in 2011, 11 years after I started, we were at 5 million, okay? So it took me 11 years to get to 5 million. And then that partnership kind of went south, right? And I had that feeling like, oh my God, I got to start all over, right? But Marcus was my new partner after that in 2011. And in 2011, we started Apple Roofing. And by 2016, we hit 27.5 million. And so when I think about, okay, number one, why did it take me 11 years to get to 5 million and 5 years to get to 27, right? Like, if anybody in the room had to start over, wouldn't you say you'd get back to where you are faster than what it took you originally, right? It's because of the skills that you have and the experience you have, the confidence you have to execute because you've already done it, right? So what if you could do that faster, right? And where you're trying to go. Like if you're trying to go to 15 million, what if you already knew how to get there? So I think when I think of these sorts of things, like the reason that I think that we got to 27 million a lot faster is, okay, yes, we had some skills, some experience that we didn't have before, but I also took on a different partner. And Marcus has a set of skills that I do not have, right? He's kind of the hoorah guy. He's leading the sales team. He had like a lot of ideas that I would not have gone down, right? He wanted to get us into a CRM, early on. That was one of the things he really wanted to do. And that set us up for a huge advantage, right? Like later on when a storm hit, because we were super organized and we had some processes, right? Because your CRM, right? That technology, you just build process around that. And I think it was 2 years ago, Marcus and I were talking about new goals, and we were like, okay, in 5 years we want to get to 100 million, right? And it seemed like this big undoable thing, right? And maybe we couldn't see over the false summit yet, but it was like this big goal we had. And the way that we thought we were going to do it was by mergers and acquisitions, right? And so we went down that road and found out, through a little trial and error that, hey, you know what? We don't have the skills that it takes to do these mergers and acquisitions at the speed and the effectiveness that we want to do them. And I'm not sure if anybody knows this, 3 months ago, we did our first merger with Crest Exteriors, right? So that puts us around 80 million, and we think we're going to close on another one before the end of the year. That is, going to be putting us up towards 90, 95 million, right? So it's super cool that we're going to get to our goal faster than we thought. But one of the things we recognized in time was that, hey, we didn't have the skills to do it, And I think when you look at wherever you're at in your company and wherever you want to be, you want to ask yourself, like, okay, what roles am I missing, right? What holes do I need to fill? What skills do I need, right? Because you probably have a fairly well-rounded team if you're at 10 million. But, some of the guys that are maybe at 2 million or what have you, they don't have that like sales manager yet, or they don't, you know what I mean? And so you have to say, okay, who's good at that? Who would be that good fit? And then figure out how to get that person on your team. And that can depend on how big your goal is. That might look really different, right? For us, well, I'm going to go back to when I partnered up with Marcus. I couldn't hire Marcus because I knew Marcus since we were kids. And Marcus is an entrepreneur. I knew he was an entrepreneur. He's always been that way. And I knew, like, okay, you might be able to hire Marcus, but he ain't going to stay forever. He eventually is going to be his own guy, right? So my only way to get that skill into my company was to say, hey, dude, let's be partners, right? I knew that I had something he needed and he had something that I needed. And so it worked really well. So I guess I did. What's that?
Hold it up.
Yeah, that's fine. So I feel very lucky that like the things have worked out the way they have through my life, And I think that when I think of luck and chance are like completely different, right? Like luck is a situation where you have to put yourself in a situation to get lucky. I mean, I remember being a kid, like I've always thought I was a lucky son of a bitch, because when I was like 5, I'd run up to the gumball machine at the mall and turn the crank, and one of them bastards would always have like some spare change in it, and I'd get a free gumball, And I've always thought like, man, I'm lucky. But if you don't go turn the crank, right, put yourself in a position for the opportunity, then you're not going to get lucky, right? So when you go through some of the things in your business, you got to think about like, okay, how can I put myself in the position to be lucky? And that's, for me, was putting the right people in place, not being afraid to take that risk, because there's a ton of people that are like scared to get in a partnership. And I've been through a bad partnership and I'm still not scared of them, right? Like, to me, it's all about the stories, right? At the end of your life, or if you're having successes, like it's We always say like it's fun to make money, but it's a hell of a lot more fun to make money with friends, right? Like if we kill something, you know, we're slapping high fives with people. If you do it by yourself, you're like, yes, you know, like it's a little different dynamic, and so I really appreciate partnerships, right? Like with Crest, I probably didn't touch on this with the Crest deal. We lacked those skills, so we got a private equity firm involved, right? And a capital partner involved. So these guys have brought like amazing resources to our company. And now we have a very different goal, right, than the $100 million goal. But it's like, we're going to continue to be like looking for new partners, right? I mean, I'm not scared of partnerships at all. As long as like, you know, both sides, I think, have to have something that benefits the other side. It's got to be good for everybody, and you've got to bring something to the table, right? That's good for both sides, and there has to be a high degree of trust. You know, Marcus and I think people in our company at the beginning used to think that like, God, them guys like go back and forth like crazy, right? Like, they say that all the time, and we're like, really? Like, we've known each other since we were like this tall, so we're like, God, I think we never argue, you know? But like, we're not afraid to like have confrontation, right? If you're going to take a partner on that thinks exactly like you, agrees just like you, as a yes man, like they're going to add no value, right? You want somebody that's going to poke holes in everything you do, like be that devil's advocate. And, you know, when you walk out of the room with a decision, right? Like we always say, when we go in a room is the time to like argue, to disagree, to voice your opinions, right? About why this won't work or will. And when we exit the room and have a decision, like it doesn't matter who came up with the idea, everybody supports it, right? We want it to win, because just like a marriage, right? Like you can't be competitive with each other. Like, oh, I'm going to tell you, I told you so in a month when this fails, right? And you're actively kind of working against it. You don't want that kind of deal. But go back a slide, would you? So I'm kind of going to touch up a little bit on something we talked about last year. If anybody was in here, was we talked about like how multitasking. This is an article from Forbes talking about multitasking, and I know I've gone through my career and I'm like, man, my memory is just shit, like compared to what it was when I was a kid. You know, I used to not, you know, our cell phones held like 9 numbers back in the day, and the rest were all in our head, you know, and now I can't even like remember one number, right? Like just some of that's probably the way we've trained our brains, but a lot of that, I think, as entrepreneurs, I've talked to a lot of them, right? And we all tend to do a lot of multitasking because, you know, if anybody was in the class last year, we really talked about like when you start your company, you're wearing all the hats, right? You're doing the marketing, you're doing the sales, you're doing the accounting, you're doing everything. And you're just rapid fire change. And when you multitask, you know, it causes a high error rate. It doesn't allow you to ever really focus on something and get really good at it. You know, when I think of focus, I always use the analogy of like Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford created that production line, and it made like the output of production be something the world's never seen, right? And some of those people are just turning a screw and then it goes to the next guy, right? Like it's crazy, but they get really fucking good at turning the screw, and it's right every time, right? The error rate is like super low. So when you look at like your business, ask yourself, like, we really try to break things into like silos. And I'm going to use an example. Even our sales department. We take our sales department and we go, okay, who are they selling to, right? Because every customer is a little bit different, right? But I'm talking of categorizing them into like a retail salesman, an insurance salesman, new construction, multifamily, right? Because all of the needs are different. And so we don't have like a new construction guy go to sell an insurance job. and we don't have an insurance guy go sell a new construction job, right? Like we really silo them out so they can get really good at that. What we found earlier on was if you have like an insurance guy that like services new construction, he makes these relationships with builders and things are going really well, right? And then the hailstorm hits and he's like kind of ignoring that guy and he's focusing on like this hailstorm, right? And then the next year the guy's like, well, dude, like you dropped off the earth and now you got to start that whole relationship over again, right? So when you think as much as you can, as much focus as you can create in your business, it doesn't matter what role we're talking about, whether it's the bookkeeper, the salesperson, the sales manager, look at the activities they're doing and try to break those down into really, I guess, take as many hats off as you can on each person and yourself, right? I mean, going back to when you were the original founder and you were doing all the roles, as soon as you hired that receptionist, you handed off a hat, right? Like, I no longer have to answer incoming phone calls, right? So you've just narrowed your focus down a little bit more, right? So as you continue to grow, I think that's why large companies can become very efficient, right? And I say can, they don't always, but they can be because you're able to have the resources to really create experts at each role, okay? I mean, I've been in an accountant firm, our accountant firm, and they have something like 400 accountants, right? And I've noticed why I'm in there, like, okay, you got like this kind of tax, this kind of tax, this kind of tax. You got to talk to 4 or 5 different people depending on what kind of tax we're talking about, right? If it's multi-state, you got a person for that. If you've got equipment things, there's a person for that, right? If you want to talk to somebody about tax strategies, it's a person for that, right? So they don't, I actually feel a little bit like I kind of want one throat to choke, sometimes, right? But the reality is when I go to somebody, I know the advice they're giving me on that topic is very solid because that's all they do, right? So let me go to the next slide here. I'm going to use another example when we talk about skills, the skills that you need to take your business to the next level. I think we were talking to a gentleman this morning, and he was talking about, I want to take my, business to the next level, and for him that looked like, 1 million to 5 million. And I said, okay, what do you need to do that, right? And he goes, well, I really need to hire like a rock star, hoorah guy that can build sales teams, whatever, right? And I go, okay. And are you wanting somebody that, has done that in the past and they've proven it, they've done it successfully? And he's like, well, yeah. Okay, how much can you pay him? Well, he said an amount. And I'm like, no offense, dude, but nobody's gonna come and do that, right? Like, what's the story? Well, in 6 months we can reassess. Well, the dude can go guarantee himself like, a better team right now or whatever. So if you cannot hire, like if you're trying to get to a goal that's so ambitious from where you are today, if you can't hire the position, if you can't afford to hire it, that's when you would maybe consider taking a partner on, right? I don't recommend like just handing out equity, right? They have to bring something that you can't hire or you can't or don't want to learn, right? I mean, some of the skills we take on, we're not going to want to learn them, right? If you have a lawsuit because, some little thing happened on a roof and they don't want to pay you, you're not going to go become an attorney to like take care of this thing, right? You're going to hire that skill set. And you want to look at your business and the way you build your business in that fashion because, experience is what builds skill, right? And it can take years and years and years to get experience. But if you bring in somebody that can expose you to that skill, you're going to learn it a lot quicker. And like we said, let's collapse the time, right? If you can do your 10-year goal in 1 year, like, you're both going to win, you know? I actually really liked what Martin said about the Tom Brady, right? Like, can we afford the Tom Brady? If we want Tom Brady on our team, right? He's going to win the championship, but can we afford? That might be the type of example I'd use for, like, the guy you might want to consider some kind of equity with, right? And I also liked what he said, that I say this all the time, action always is going to beat ideas, right? We can come to these things and fill our head with, like, a whole bunch of, like, ideas, but until you go home and take action on them, like, nothing's going to happen, right? You can read as many books as you want, you can listen to as much inspirational podcasts as you want or whatever, unless you take action on it, nothing's going to happen. And sometimes that's that position you need to hire in your company, is like that implementer, that integrator, because a lot of us have great ideas. Well, shit, I always tell Marcus this, like, Heath Hicks next door, right? Everybody knows he's got that catch-all, right? Well, Marcus thought of and drew up that whole thing, like, almost the same as what it looks today, like probably like 10 years ago, and was like, yeah, and we're going to have our brand across it. It's going to be great, right? Like, he had all this idea. But guess how much that idea is worth today? Nothing, because he didn't do it. Heath did it. Action beats ideas. Ideas are worthless, right? You've got to be able to execute them for them to have value. Let's see. So here, this, if I'll put my email at the end if anybody wants to see this, but I'm gonna try to talk you through what this is. This is kind of that thing that I think is like an action thing. Not really. So when I talk about, like, finding a role or whatever, right? Like, you don't want to, when you're going to hire a role in your company, you don't want to, like, create a role for a person. You want to do the opposite. You want to create the role and find the right person for the role, right? Like, it's hard to do as entrepreneurs because we have, like, friends and family, and we're always, like, caring about them and whatever, right? Like, oh God, I need to find this thing for this guy to do because I care about him. I want him to, like, be in, right? And sometimes that works, and sometimes it can be a really good thing. But I really recommend, like, okay, look at the role. And this is, again, I'm going to call a scorecard, right? But what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, what position is this? You're going to go through what the vision for the role is, right? So I think this particular one that I have as an example is for a salesperson, right? And it says the vision for the role is to provide homeowners with a rock star experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of goes through what we're looking for in the role, right? And then you're going to say, what does an A player look like for this role? So that's where you're going to start saying, like, you want to do this before you ever post the job, right? Because when you do your interviews, you're going to now compare your interviewees to, do they fit what we're looking for here, right? So, like, an A player for this role would be blah, 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 right? I can share this with you guys. I don't want to read it to you, but the other thing in here that is important is they have to write, my role will be an absolute success if what? Now you get to learn what the employee is looking for, what they're trying to accomplish, right? It's really nice to have in their kind of HR file, so you know kind of, hey, what's motivating this person? How can I connect with this person when I need to, right?
Is this just interviewees or current employees?
This is interviewees. You know, you're going to use it to determine, though, a little bit if you hire. And I'll talk to you guys about a couple softwares we use. Like, we use a software called Bamboo HR. If you don't have, like, a HR software, I highly recommend, like, take a look at Bamboo HR. It's a little bit of, like, a setup process to get into, but man, it is really amazing for managing your recruits, your onboarding, the life of the employee. I think one of the KPIs that like we put into place that is really overlooked, I think, in our industry is what's your retention rate? How many people stay a week? How many people stay a year? How many people stay 5 years, right? And doing the exit interview, right? Like, and the software kind of updates managers saying, hey, you need to do your 6-month review. You need to do your 1-year review, right? And it has templates for them to do. People want to know, they have to have that feedback. What am I doing well? What can I improve on, right? Instead of like dude, you're fired. Like, what? Why? You know, they may know why, but they didn't feel like they got any coaching along the way, right? And if you can keep people, then it's going to be, you're going to just have more success there. I think. Anyway, I'll kind of touch on the scorecard. It's great for onboarding. I think, onboarding is your number one most important time in the life of any employee, right? That's when they get like in the door and say, what's this company about? How am I to conduct myself, right? If you aren't like really organized when they start, they kind of think, oh, it's super laid back. We don't really have to, right, perform at this level. But when they show up and it's like, okay, cool, like they got my shirt, it's my size, like here's all my shit I need. Okay, I'm going into training. I go through training. They kind of know what the expectations are, right? They're guided through the process of onboarding, and they see you kind of holding them to a level right from day one. They're gonna be that employee that shifts the culture in your company to be one of, a kind of person that really holds themselves to a standard. Because I know we're guilty of it. Like in the past, like, God, people just aren't holding the standard we want or whatever, right? But we probably started that when we hired them, because we're entrepreneurs. We want to move fast and we make decisions and we want to figure it out later. And figuring it out later is usually not the best method, right? So Marcus, why don't you take over from here? But if anybody does want a copy of that scorecard, I'll share my email.
Maybe we could just start a sheet or something and everybody write down your email address. We'll just send you a copy of it. Sorry that we don't have the technology, obviously. I don't know.
Use this pad here?
Yeah, that'd be great if you did start that. So as Dustin talks about some of these things, and we go to scaling our business, right? That obviously happens at different levels for each one of us, right? Some of us are at 2 million, some of us at 1 million, some of us started, some of us 10, 15, 20, whatever that means. And when we think of success as a general statement, I think the world perceives that it's like, how many people have gone down the rabbit hole of like, I'm going to get rich quick, right? I want to make a bunch of money, right? I got to find this thing that I make all this money. Well, so that's us with this impression, right? That the sliding scale is just straight. It just, oh yeah, we just do this and we start making money and we do more of it and we make more money and it just continues to rise like this, right? But we come to start our businesses, and I don't think this is any different than any other business, but when we start going, we start realizing this is what our life is really like, right? Like we get to this curve and we're like, oh shit, what do we do there? Or we start answering the phone, we start doing the accounting roles, we start doing legal stuff, we have a sales rep, we start solving all these problems, and we didn't realize the next thing we're going sideways. We're not even actually moving forward, we're actually just going sideways, right? And so I feel like this arrow, and I wish I had the presentation to be able to show you this, but here we might have made an implementation, right? We might have made some adjustments, and then we get into this big pile of shit right here. And in this, what's going on? Oh, well, we decided we're going to do mitigation, we're going to do fencing, we're going to do all this other stuff that really didn't drive our business from the beginning, right? We started focusing on all this other stuff. So we sit back and we say, what's happening? What do I need to do to correct this? And
Sorry.
No worries. It's great that you're doing it. It might make it a little easier.
It seems tiring.
We might be able to scale this a little bit better. But anyway, so we go through and we try to make these adjustments. And I think when we go through this, and I'm going to show you the next slide. So here we are, we're going back to normal, right? Started scaling, we hit all these road bumps, we put all these processes. Sometimes we went sideways, maybe we dipped even in revenue, and we figured out whatever it is, whether we hired a receptionist, we hired a network marketing person, we hired 4 more sales reps, doesn't matter, production manager. And then we get back to maybe smooth. And to give you an idea, this is literally our chart. This is our graph and what we've done and how we've scaled our business. So we started off obviously at 0. Right here in 26, we went from 10.5 to 26.5. And now we're going to jump up again. And I say all this. I go down this path first because Dustin's talking about partnerships and what does that mean. And when we first started, he knew it, and he's right. I wasn't gonna come work for him just to be working for him, right? Like, what's the big vision for me? I have these ambitions, and we run across these unique people every once in a while, and we sit back and we wonder, why can we not? Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Why can we not? Why do the sales reps not get it? Why do they not follow the processes? Why do they not see the vision that I see? How do I help them see this vision? Well, some people just don't have it. They don't have that factor. But when we do, how do we capitalize on it? And how does it not overly hurt our pocketbook, right? Because as business owners, we want to sit there, and every advisor that we've ever had, legal advisor, CPAs, every single one of them, bankers, everybody that's supposed to be, your close connection, they're like, don't get into your business way, dude. That's foolish. Why would you guys do that? Don't do that. And we're like, we did it. Like, we're partners right now, Like, it's worked for us. We're fairly successful people, right? So go at that with that mindset that we have to stop and pull ourselves back and stop sometimes being so stubborn and thinking that we know everything and that we've got all the answers and that I'm going to tell you how to do your job here, because we are all growing. And even one of the best things that I've probably experienced in my most recent career is this next partnership that we decided that's taken us to 77 million this year. We merged with Crest. And in that we have a financial partner called Gage Capital. And the CEO of Gage Capital is a very, very wealthy individual, obviously. And that guy is the first person that'll probably say the fewest words in the meeting, and he'll sit back and he'll sit there and tell them that he's still learning. He's pulling in the information, and he gives out better advice than probably most of the people in the room. And he didn't hardly say anything. We're all over here talking about what our ideas are, and yep, this is the path, blah, 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 blah. And he sits back and he says 1 or 2 things, and we all go, didn't think about that.
Right.
I mean, it seriously happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so as I go to this next slide, that's not it. I updated it. I'll back up. Okay, so we're all at a crossroad, right? We're all here thinking, like, how do we scale our business? What does that mean to you? And I don't know without going through every single one of them. But Joe, you said you're at 10 million, right? So what is your challenge right now? What's your next goal?
Organization.
Okay.
The next one is CRM. I don't have one.
And you said 15 million with better profits, right? Okay, so when we sit down and think about the what, where, when, who, why, and how, right? Well, we've gone back to ourselves through several of these processes and asked ourselves that same thing. Okay, what are we trying to accomplish first, right? You want to get to 15 million with better margins, okay? So we know that's the goal, okay? Do we need to I'm assuming you're going to do this in southern Chicago, okay? So he's out of Illinois in south side of Chicago, right? That's where most of your work is, okay? Retail-based business.
Yep.
Okay, so we say when are we going to try to achieve this?
Starting now.
Okay, starting now.
In the next 3 years.
3 years? Okay, so we're giving ourselves a 3-year time frame. So if we break down 3 years, what's that mean we need to grow by? We want to basically go 5 million, right? We want to grow 5 million in 3 years. What do we do? What do we need to do? Somebody run a calculator. It's what? 2.5. 1.7. 1.7. Okay, so we got to do 1.7 for the next 3 years, or a little bit 1.5, 2.2, 2.1, so on. So what do we got to do in 2022 to get to 1.5, 1.7, 1.8, something like that? What's our plan? What's the goal now? We know we want to do 1.7 in 1 year. Okay. Who do we need? Anybody? Do we need to add anybody to the team?
Nope, just did.
Okay, so we made it. We made the adjustments. Joe's saying, "Yep, I made the adjustments. I feel like I've done what I need to do." Whether that was sales, who did you have? Just department wise.
Sales guy.
So you added one sales guy.
Yeah.
So you believe that one sales guy is going to take you to 1.7 million more?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, I was that guy. He took over that 25 hour a week job for me.
Okay, perfect.
So
All I'm trying to do is, we're laying out a plan, right? Like, how are we going to get there? That was which I just asked the same question. How are we going to get there? So you said you need a CRM. You're unorganized.
Yep.
Okay. What CRM are you going with?
Job numbers.
Okay. What makes you decide to go with Job Nimbus?
I looked at AccuLinks and looked more storm driven. I'm not a storm guy.
Okay. What makes you shine about it? Job Nimbus. And I don't care what the answer is, right, guys? It doesn't matter what the answer
It
is.
seemed to me that they had really good support. And I think I need good support. That's why I chose Job Numbers.
Okay. And you build out all the processes to maximize the usage of Job Nimbus, right?
Yep.
Okay. So great. It looks like Joe's done this. It sounds like you've kind of maybe not done this specifically, but
Sure.
you've sat down and maybe took an inner look at yourself and said, how do I get to this next step, right? And I think what happens is, as I was showing you in this slide earlier, this happens so much, and we go sideways and we start forgetting that we're supposed to be on top of our company, not in our company. And as Dustin said at the beginning of this meeting, he climbed and he hit this false summit. But even at the false summit, he was able to see more than what he could down at 8,000 feet, right? Then he went to the next summit. And maybe the false summit walked out pretty flat for 200 feet, and then he started climbing again. And as he gets to the top of this peak, he can oversee his business. And I think as business owners, sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. We do this all the time. I've done it to myself 100 times. I get this bored moment. feel this complacency. I don't know what to do. So I start piling on these things that really aren't good for our business. It's just good for Marcus's time. I feel like I'm a good partner now, right? Like, I owe it to Dustin to drive business. But when Marcus is driving business, that means production problems aren't getting solved. Sales reps' personalities aren't getting met. My sales coach's personalities aren't getting met. People are getting frustrated because they can't get a hold of me, right? I'm out here thinking I'm driving revenue, when in all reality, I needed to be at the peak looking at my team to be able to say, oh, you need help here. You need help here. You need help here. Or this is a cluster and we need to fix this. So I'm going to hire this person. We're going to go back to this scorecard that you guys can all receive, and we're going to spell that out. What problem, as I'm standing up here, what problem am I looking at down here? And how do we untangle this mess so we can go on a better trajectory up, Everybody's going to take these dips. You're going to go up. I don't care if you're at 700,000, or you're at 10 million, you're pushing up against 10 million. You're hitting, as a matter of fact, our number was right around 10 million, where we just kept bumping up against it, until we finally implemented we started fully using a CRM to its fullest. And we chose AccuLinks, okay? I don't care what it is. But we started building a process that was mandatory. And until we did that, we just kept bumping against it, right? The 5 to 7 to 10 million was the hardest growth phase of our lives. That's when we were doing the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. bullshit, trying to get work done for the next day. And you're like, what? This doesn't even make sense. This doesn't work. You can't scale this. Like, I can't teach somebody to work until 3 a.m.
I got a question. Can I bump it?
Yeah.
So when you're saying at 5 to 10 to 15,000 or 15 million for the bumps that you guys were hitting, was that the bumps in production, or was it sales? What were the bumps?
So the 7 million one, that was when we started bumping into production problems. We didn't have a good processes and procedures. And Dustan was running production at the time. They were literally staying until 2 a.m. trying to get everything figured out. We didn't follow the CRM to the path that it could have been. We thought we were going to do everything more manual, and there's all these systems out there today to help make that smoother.
Because I kind of feel like the selling part, the marketing part, all of that. Like, I mean, we have enough knowledge on that, but I feel that we're lacking is teaching to production. And I feel we need a class that is teaching production. What do you guys do at the end of the season when your crews are starting to get burned out?
So,
even if you're paying them more than anybody else in that area, my crews are still getting burned out.
hey, we fight those same challenges, okay? We have the same exact challenges. It's a 12-12 pitch. It's the end of October,
Yep.
and you typically would pay $105 a square for that. And they're like, we want $155. I'm like, what? Why? Well, because I can't keep my guys. They want to go south. They want to go to Texas. They're tired of it. Or we'll keep working for you if you have like 612s and under. And we're like, what the hell? Like, dude, we don't get a pick. Like,
Yeah.
we don't just going to be like, oh, let's go sell a 612 pitch and not the
Yeah,
12-12, right? And we've run across all the same problems. Honestly, some of what happens there is scale,
Yeah.
right? I don't know how many crews we have. It's a shitload. And you don't want to do it, cool. You don't want to do it, cool. You don't want to do it. And we've also gotten to the point where our crews know that if they keep us happy, they're going to maintain happy. They'll be able to keep their crews happy. So some of that's come with scale. And then some of it's also come with being able to be organized enough to be able to predict that ahead of time, right? I've got 7, 12, 12 pitch roofs. Okay, let's not do them all in 1 week. Like, let's do one now, do one in a week, save some of the good stuff. Like in 2016, we were doing, in October, we did 400 roofs in 2016, in the month of October. And that's because we had all this backlog, we had to get it caught up. Well, so we strategically took and said, okay, how many 412s do we have? How many 912 to 1212s do we have? This crew is going to do 4 of these and 1 of these. 4 of these, 1 of these. Because we were running against the exact same problem. And the only thing I can say is it goes back to the organization that you're wanting to implement. If you set those standards and start following them, you can start tweaking them. But and if you guys notice, most of the industry right now, we talk about sales all the time, right? But when you have a support system that supports your sales team, your sales can actually go quicker, right? And they actually start building confidence off of that. But then when they're coming back and you're like, oh, I can't get my job done. Jose left, Long left, Carlos, which was my best crew, is gone. Fuck, you guys just pissed everybody off.
Well, I think something I'd add to that too is it's super important that you treat your subs with what's important to them, right? Like we found that one of the most important things to subcontractors is that they get their check on time every time, right? And if you get a really good reputation for like pay like on the dot, like I don't want to ever hear a crew didn't get his paycheck on Friday ever. Like if you had to wait till Monday, I'm not pleased about that because that's kind of a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Like they want their check, they want their cash in their hand on Friday, right, to go do their weekend thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think you have to place a lot of importance on what's important to them, you know, what's fair to them. And I mean, we even put like an ice machine in our shop so they can come fill their coolers up in the morning. Just make them feel like they're part of the group, they're special, like that we appreciate them. Tell them you appreciate them, you know. That's, I'd say, important to get the most out of people too.
To answer the question very simply, I would say organize your production process. That will help you scale that side of the business, right? I think that most of us have had that challenge with production. You get to a certain level, you don't know how to complete it fast enough or whatever. Systemize that out.
So do you have like people in the office as far as like production managers?
Yep.
Is it just one?
No, we have 1 president of production and 4 production managers.
Full production. And then for each one of your subs, do you have a manager on site with them?
Our sales reps do that.
Your sales reps.
But I'm not gonna lie, we are in a process right now. We are gonna go back. We're gonna figure out some new partnerships. We're gonna figure out some new scaling abilities because we're hitting a different. We're going up to numbers we haven't seen. Right, we're at going to be at 77 million, pushing 100 million by the end of next year, if not 150 million. And we're gonna have to redo some of this stuff. Right. I believe in a lot of what Martin said down there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with a lot of what he said. Inside, I believe in the inside part of what he's saying. I also believe in making sales reps let them sell, right? That's what they do. So I believe that we will be transferring away from a little bit of the sales management from a production side. But
That's kind of what we did too. We had like one production manager that manages 2 crews at the same time. So I try to schedule them that they're within, a couple blocks from each other with 2 jobs, and he bumps back.
are you in one region?
Yeah, Northeast Ohio.
Northeast, what's the population density there?
The population, that would be Philip question.
Okay, so I don't know if this applies to everybody, but it some of that applies to population density. Chicago, easy, right? You could go hire a production manager and he could watch 6 jobs a day, right? When the storm happened in 2016, I was watching 5 a day because I knew that was what was best for our team, right? Let my sales reps go. I drove around with a big ass cooler in the back of my truck, can of Gatorade to all of my crews going up. And if you notice Martin's 5, the fist bump, that's a pretty much generic Hispanic 5. And I'm not trying to take that away from Martin, but that's how it is, right? And that does resonate with them. So if you're geographically located, that's great. It's easy to do one production manager, I think. We are in a state of 2 million, so we have little towns everywhere. Well, one guy might be in Columbus, he might be in Lincoln, he might be, so that starts becoming like, what kind of overhead expense are we incurring to get to that point, right?
2 to 3.
Cool. 10 minutes, you said.
I got a question. What's on your average day, what's the most important thing you guys do?
I'll tell you what, I'll dive into that a little bit. My role right now is changing a lot because, one of the things that is really important is you hire somebody better than you, right? And I held the title of CEO for a long time, and we now just hired a new CEO, and he's a real CEO, right? Like, I look at what he's doing and I'm like, damn, I sucked at my job, right? Like, I really sucked at my job. and so, like, right now he's not from the roofing industry, right? So right now my role is spending a lot of time with him, like talking through, roofing things that, getting him kind of onboarded, right? I think I know what my role might look like right now, but honestly, day after we, hired him, one of my guys is like, yeah, I heard you got fired, man. Like, literally, like, but that's the deal. Like, remember our first receptionist, she was so afraid to, like, we were having huge bottleneck in the office, right? And we were like, hey, we need to get you help. We need to get you help. Well, she would not train anybody because she was afraid her job would be at risk, right? And we ended up having to get rid of her because we couldn't scale without scaling that, and I just went through the same thing with our videographer. She, we said we need to hire on another role, and she found a guy that, he's better than she is, right? And she literally told me, she's like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm a little bit nervous to hire him because I don't know if you need me anymore. And I'm like, Aaron, like, here's the deal. If he's a success, you're a success. If you hire somebody that sucks, well, right? Like, the people that can bring more valuable people into your company are more valuable, right? People that can't accept that become very not valuable to your company, But you can talk about your role probably better than I can right now.
Well, my
right?
role's changing a lot drastically too, but I'll be honest, my role previous to the merger, honestly, was probably as much employee focused as anything. Like, my day literally would be like, I show up, I grab a cup of coffee, I go over and shoot the shit with my production manager, go over and shoot the shit with my property management, new construction guy, go talk with Brian, which is a director of sales, probably go talk to Alyssa, which runs our HR.
Well,
But, I mean, I would walk around and be like, hey,
I'll put something in perspective. On Monday mornings, Marcus basically spends the whole morning meeting with every department and going through KPIs, right? Just short meetings, getting a feel, making sure he's in touch with what's going on in every department, and then moving on, right? So, all right, they said to cut it.
oh,
So with your merger with Crest, are you guys going to maintain separate entities under one umbrella, or eventually merge?
We're gonna merge. We're gonna be one entity, one name.
Who's going to end up on top?
Well, we're both open-minded about it. We basically have talked about it, and we're like, hey, look, the way we get to our goal, we don't care. We just want to be successful, and we know to be successful, we need to be one entity, one name, right? So, of course, there's a lot of pride for us and a lot of pride for them. Of course, it feels that way, right? But like how we get there, all we care, Marcus and I have these arguments all the time, right? But at the end of the day, we're both driving for the same goal, right? So whenever this decision's made and we walk out of the room with this is going to be the name, we both said like, okay, we're both open to, it could be Crest, it could be Apple, and it could be something that's not either, right? Well, that's been the joke. That's been the joke. We've been calling it Crapple. Every file says Crapple on it right now. So